Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with Ryan. It's great to be with you today. My name is Ryan Lombardi, and I serve as the Vice President for Student and Campus Life at Cornell. Probably had a chance to meet many of you before, but if not, this is our fourth episode of Real Talk with Ryan. And this is a series in which we get to talk to students and colleagues, faculty, and staff around campus to speak a little bit more about the student experience and some of those issues that might be high on people's mind. We've got a great episode today. We're just a few weeks away from move-in and the start of fall 2021 at Cornell. Of course, unfortunately, COVID-19 continues to throw us curveballs, so we're doing the best we can, but my two colleagues today in particular have been really tremendous in helping to get the year ready for our students as they arrive shortly. Today, we're going to be focused on the residential experience. My colleagues are from the Department of Residential Life, Housing and Residential Life. First, Priehs, who's the Director of Residential Life, and then Lammi, Adem, who is one of the Residence Hall directors in Donlon Hall. And you'll see when I ask them to introduce themselves that you'll see the image of Donlon Hall right in her background. So we're really pleased to be with you today. I'm going to ask my colleagues to first introduce themselves. Abby, would you go first?
Hi, everyone. My name is Priehs, as Ryan said. And again, I serve as the Director of Residential Life, and I've been here since May. And so I'm really excited to be here to answer your questions today and talk with Ryan and really talk about how excited we are for move-in and get through it. And again, my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lammi Adem. I'm the Residence Hall Director for Mary Donlon Hall, one of our first-year halls. And I've been in Mary Donlon for 3 years now. So yeah, excited to have students move in and get the semester started.
Lammi, you're going into your third year, is that correct?
Yeah, going into my third year. I started at time, so March always throws things off a little bit.
So I'm going to start with you and asking you a question. What inspired you to work in residence life? Why have you chosen to have this type of a role where you're living in a residence hall and helping students with their experience?
I had never lived in residence life in my undergrad experience. So it was in grad school that I became really passionate about residence life. And I think a lot of it came from being able to be in spaces where you're encouraging students, working with students outside of the hall, outside of their academics, and being able to work with them to kind of like explore their own development. So being able to decide like, what are the things that I'm working on? What are the things that I'm relaxing? How can I grow as a person while in this space? And so I think that's what also keeps me in residence life, is there's a little bit of everything. Every day is a little different. So.
Well, living with several hundred, I don't know how big Donlon is. How many students are in your building?
Around 470. So we've got a nice big building, lots of fun residents. So.
470 residents. That every day must be a little bit different, right?
It is. Every day is a little bit different. Every resident is a little different. Every year is a little different. So there are things that come up every year, and it's always interesting to see what they bring to the space each year.
This is my 7th year at Cornell, and one thing I always hear from people is that Donlon is a really special residence hall. How would you respond to that? What would you say to our alumni who might watch, or parents or students who have heard of that? I have my own philosophy for why that is, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something that we hit a lot is, Donlon is, I think to an extent, like a social hub, right? It's a space where everyone gets to know each other because every time you step out of the door, you're meeting someone else. Like you're running into people in the bathroom, you're running into people in the lounge. And I think because it's so open, people then feel real comfortable, and other people from other halls feel comfortable coming to the building. So there are frequently people bringing their friends over. And so I think that's what makes it so special and such a fun place to be, and why people want to be in it is, we may not have AC, we may not have overhead lights, but you will have friends in the building, and you will make friends, and you will get to know most of your floor.
I love that. Thank you so much for addressing that. I often talk about how environments matter so much when we think about the residential experience, and Donlon, for a few of its challenges, got a lot right when the people who designed it and put it together did that to really foster that social interaction. We'll talk a little bit more about design. We've got some exciting new residence halls coming online this fall. We'll talk a little bit more about that and the importance of that design in a little bit. But I want to turn to Abby next. So Abby is a director of residence life. you've been in Lammi's shoes. I myself have as well, many moons ago. And so just want to hear a little perspective from you about what you think about leading the Department of Residence Life and what are some of the key priorities in supporting the student experience broadly, not from a live-in perspective, but from a holistic perspective.
What we're looking at is really focusing on the interactions that our students are going to have with our live-in staff, with each other, and really focusing on that one-on-one interaction with each other. So we always will look at programming that will be very important to us. One of the unique things about Cornell is the ability for our students to interact with our faculty. That is a unique experience that I don't think that many institutions have in the ways that we do. We have smaller building size than a lot of institutions do. So I think that that also encourages that just by that natural size. So our program houses, as well as our thematic buildings, our first year focus buildings as well. Those are really exciting. But we also have leadership opportunities for our students as well. So, we're talking about our community councils, our residential student congress, are advocating for residential needs as well. And then we bring in our many campus partners that are here to provide all their services for our students. So we have so many opportunities for our students. And because we are moving towards our first and second year students with their residential experience living with us as a requirement, that is a unique opportunity where they will get to see that first and second year living with us. We will really focus on that one-on-one interaction with our student staff. We are really excited. We're bringing our RA staff on this coming Tuesday, and they're starting their training on Wednesday, and we're going to, again, train them to then support students in their growth and development as well. So those are the things that we're looking forward to, so that they can be the best resource to then support students as they get in their growth.
Thank you. Now, I know you mentioned in your intro that you're relatively new to Cornell, that you just started back in May.
Yes.
I know you came here from the University of Michigan, just
like
our president. So you got that in sync with President Pollock.
Yes.
You just mentioned the incredible breadth of housing and residence life opportunities that students have at Cornell. Is that one of the things that you've noticed as really unique to Cornell versus the other places that you've been, or are there other elements that you'd say are really special about the Cornell residential experience?
Even though we have a larger institution in terms of the number of residents on campus, the fact that our buildings are smaller creates sort of a smaller community, a smaller connected community. And so our students will get that smaller connected to their student staff experience than you'll see at sort of larger institutions, which is a really unique experience. And we really will emphasize that and do emphasize that with our student staff and with our full-time live-in staff as well.
Great, thank you. Now, Lammi, I know that you supervise these resident advisor staff that Abby was just speaking about. You have a chance to support them and supervise them in the communities. Are there anything that new students and parents and those who are watching should know about the role of the RA and what the RA is really trying to help facilitate within the residential communities?
Yeah, so the role of the RAs and what they're really trying to create is that sense of community and a sense of being able to build relationships with each other, mediate conflict as it happens. So they're there as a resource, and they're also there to connect them to other resources. So I think that's a big thing for RAs, is like they're someone who's easily accessible in the halls to be like, hey, I don't know what to do about this class, or I'm struggling with this thing, or I'm struggling with this conflict, or I heard about this policy or this thing that I have to do. What is it? And so they're really there to kind of like reconnect them to where they should go, direct them in the right ways, but also to help them make friends, help them find out what are they interested in, like where can I find something like that on campus. There are so many student organizations across campus, and so as a student coming in, it might feel overwhelming, but they're there to help them process through that.
That's great overview, and I appreciate. I think that's what you hit on is one of the most important pieces of advice for new students, right? Is to ask for help, to seek out the resources, and the RAs are just an amazing resource in that regard. And whether, like you said, it's pointing them to the right place or helping them make a connection with someone else in the community or across campus, I know they can really make a difference and often do make a difference in our students' lives, and certainly appreciate you helping to support them in their effort to do so. Earlier, I did mention in passing that we are opening some new residential communities this year. We're really excited about that. The first communities to open at Cornell in more than 15 years. 2 new buildings will open not far from Donlon Hall there. We were just talking about that before we got started. Toni Morrison Hall and Gannedigo Hall. 2 beautiful new buildings as part of the North Campus residential expansion. They'll house a little over 800 students this coming fall. So we're really excited to open those up. And maybe I'll ask Abby to just share very briefly a little bit more about what students and parents and others can expect when they show up, especially if they're in one of those newer facilities, and not only if they live there, but just in general, what the facilities will provide for all of North Campus. So there's a lot of resources that we've designed into these that will be available to all students on North Campus.
They're beautiful spaces. Once you come to North Campus, you're going to see them. They have community spaces open to not just our residential students, but also to the entire campus, which is really unique and very special. And so our off-campus and on-campus students have the ability on the first floor to be able to access those spaces, the fitness spaces in the lower level. And so there are free weights, there's, so all the fitness equipment that you would see in any of our recreational facilities, those are, provided, those are monitored by our student monitors, those are available, so they can be open to any student with a Cornell ID. It's all glass around, so you can really see in and out. So there's outdoor seating, so any of our students who are inside can see outside and vice versa. One of the great things about it too is that we really work to have it LEED Gold certified. They're currently working on that, which, if you're not familiar with what that means, it's the leadership in energy in environmental design, which is sort of a framework for making it highly efficient and cost saving for a green building. And as well as there was real intentionality in making sure that there was social and lounge spaces on each floor for all of the residential students. On the second floor, there's also spaces for students to bring in their laptops. So there's like a whole entire area for like computer spaces. So there's hubs for all those. So there's really that intentionality to bring in, a number of both our off and on campus students to use those. So it's really a great space for all of our students to be able to use, not just our residential.
Great. Yeah, we're very excited. This is a project a long time in the works and really overdue for Cornell students. So we're really excited to share that with Cornell students. I should note too, just because I will, that there will be a second phase opening next fall. Yes. So that's still under construction over on the east side of North Campus next to Appel Commons. So as you're coming back onto campus or coming to campus for the first time, you will see some ongoing construction there, but that will be an additional more than 1,200 beds that will open next fall in the fall of 2022. Now, we're not that far away from move-in. It's just a couple weeks away. You mentioned that move-ins starting, RAs are starting this week for their training. But, as students come in, especially new students, let's just focus on them for a minute. This may be for them the first time where they're living with someone else, sharing a room, especially in close quarters. For others, it might be something they've been accustomed to for many years. Really our students, have a variety of experiences coming in, but I wonder if either of you might provide some advice or guidance to our students as they think about that transition, and any tips or pointers about living with another person in those quarters and ways that they can really help set a framework and have things start off on a good foot.
I can jump in first. So I think for our first year students, something to really think about is everyone who's coming to the residence hall is coming with their own norms of how they did things back home, or how clean things were, like how loud they like things, how loud they don't. And so really reflect and think about what are the things that are really important to me? What are the things that I know, hey, I get really cranky, I sleep really heavily, or I sleep super light, so that you're able to have an honest conversation with your roommate. Because I think that sets things up to be able to compromise and be transparent of, these are the things that I need, these are the things that you need, let's figure out how we can compromise around them. Because unless you start off with that honest conversation, it's going to be really difficult later on. I mean, always check back in to be like, hey, how's this going? Are we okay? Are there things that aren't going right?
And I would say too, to add to that, ask the people that you live with, whether it's like your roommate or your family, about those things, and ask them to be really honest about that. So like people think that sometimes they're really easygoing until like they ask them like, what am I like as a roommate? And then they're like, well, you hit the snooze like 17 times and it's really annoying. And so like knowing those things about yourself, right? So like maybe that's something you want to know about yourself in advance of living with somebody that you don't know. And so I know that those are things that like we tell students beforehand, and they learn that about themselves before they live with somebody who then has to tell them about themselves. So that's always a fun thing to know before you move in with someone.
That's a lot of great advice from both of you. I appreciate it. And I will say, if my kids are not quite going to college yet in a couple of years, but if my kids ask me for that feedback, I could very quickly give it to them based on what their living patterns are.
Yeah.
And you're right,
sure.
we're all quirky, but I love the idea and the reminder that everybody's lived experience is different, and everybody is accustomed to different norms about how they might have lived in their home or wherever they're coming from. And I think that's really important to be upfront and to seek those out and to honor them. And another thing I think that was said was really important, and I read this the other day, and so I don't know how you all feel about this. There are some times when your roommate will become your best friend. Like it'll just hit and it'll click, and it'll be more than roommates. It'll actually become a really deep friendship. But that's not also necessary for it to be a successful roommate partnership. You can live with someone and respect the space that you're sharing and not be best friends. That's okay. Is that a fair statement from your perspectives?
Yeah, completely. I think those are sometimes the most successful roommate pairings, is when you're not best friends. Because then if something happens, like, okay, I'm out with my group of friends, something happens there and I get into an argument with another friend, now my roommate is stuck like, I'm still friends with them. Now I've heard that you're still friends with them, but they're not my friend anymore. So you have all of those dynamics going in too.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And so I just offer that. We offer that to, students, parents who, again, are feeling anxious about this transition and what it might be like as we get ready for that. I want to ask if you have any tips for Cornelians as they prepare for move-in in these couple of weeks. We're a couple of weeks away. We talked a little bit about the roommate experience specifically, but for folks that are coming here for the first time, any general advice as they prepare to come to campus?
As far as general advice, I would always say it's easier to come with less than it is to come. The rooms, you're going to be sharing it with another person. So if you're able to talk to them beforehand, to be like, okay, so you're going to bring the mini fridge, I'll bring these storage shelves, like let's figure some stuff out, because you're going to be in a tight space. And while you want to be comfortable, you're also going to get things over the year. Like you'll go to a program and get a succulent, and now you have a succulent. Go someplace else and get new clothes, and then be like, okay, I have all of these things. And it's a lot harder to downsize and ship things home than it is to get things brought back.
That's really good advice. I remind certainly my colleagues here know, but last year when we opened, we had to restrict how much people could bring, and we asked for only 2 suitcases and 1 backpack. Not everybody adhered to that, we'll say, but this year we're not putting that restriction on. But I think Lammi's advice is really good still, that we don't overdo it in terms of how much we're bringing. Abby, any pieces of advice?
Yeah, for sure. So I would first bring a fan. It's really important. Not all of our buildings are air conditioned, so I'd say definitely bring a fan.
We heard that from before with Donlon, right?
Yes, for sure. And I would say definitely read all of the emails that Housing and Residential Life is sending you, like read them thoroughly. And make sure you read all of our website that tells you about packing lists and all that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing I would say is if like you're close to your family and you are in contact with them, if you haven't talked about a communication plan. So for example, if you're really tight with them and you tend to be communication where you text a lot or you call a lot, but maybe going to college, you're maybe not going to do that, or you haven't quite figured that out, really spend some time talking about what communication looks like. Because we'll find out, and any of our full-time staff will tell you that probably in the first maybe couple weeks or even a month or in the first semester, we'll get a lot of phone calls from families who will say like, I haven't talked to my student today, this week, or even a couple times. I thought they were going to call me every day, and they didn't. Really what happened is they went to class, or they just went to coffee with a friend, and So if you haven't had time to figure out a communication plan, like we're going to talk at 9 o'clock every Tuesday, that's our time. Just do that, make the time to figure that out.
I want to add my own piece of advice, specifically for move-in. Move-in, that the actual move-in day itself, I think, is a really anxiety-provoking time. This is, whether it's the anxiety that, or all of these, the anxiety of coming to college and what that's going to be like, and the fear of being successful or not being successful, and whether or not you're going to find a sense of belonging. If it's the separation from your family, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes people are excited to be leaving and moving on for their families, but there's still other pieces of anxiety there. I've often interacted with families on move-in day that are just very, very tense. And, the students anxious about the things that students are anxious about. The parents, if their parents with them or siblings or guardians, they're also having a different anxiety, and it just amplifies everybody's tension. And so my advice on move-in in particular is to just everybody breathe and take it easy, communicate openly and effectively with each other, and just know that you'll get everything in. Even if you packed way too much, you'll get it in, we'll get settled in, and we'll make this work. And to not get overly anxious or stressed out about that time, because it is a difficult transition without question. I myself had a very hard time leaving home, and I was very emotional during my move-in day, and it was hard for me, and it was, all kinds of things. And you see people all over in different space and having different reactions. So just giving everybody space, giving each other and your family space, I think is really important during that day. Lots of hugs, that's great. I will say one logistical thing. Please remember when you're moving in, especially parents, but also students, we have an indoor mask policy right now. So when you're coming into the buildings, please keep your masks on. We're trying to make sure that we can have a robust fall semester, and the Delta variant is causing some challenges there. So we're really asking everyone to be diligent in that regard. So that's one little logistical thing about move-in that I'll put a plug in for. For this first year of college, what do you think is really important to bring with you?
Yeah, so I think some of the things that I would for sure bring, so a shower caddy, just like, and some slippers. You're going to be using a communal bathroom, just something to be able to get back and forth between your room and the bathroom. I would double the fan. I'm going to triple say that, especially being in a non-air conditioned building. For some of our buildings, I know I say this and I sent it in my Donlon newsletter, being like, bring some LED lights. Not all of our buildings have overhead lights, and you don't want to make that assumption.
And these LED lights are so popular now, right? You see them all the time. They put out a lot of light too.
Yeah, it's my cue to see like how full Donlon is. I go out at night and see all the lights, and I'm like, okay, some red disco kind of theme.
You could also see people's color preferences, right? What they've got going on. That's great. Awesome. Thank you. Abby, how about you? What would be a couple of things you'd recommend in addition to the fan suggestion you made before and that Lammi seconded and thirded?
So all of our beds are extra long twins. So I think that's a big thing, because that's one thing that I don't think people sometimes pay attention to, is that they're extra long. So you don't want to get twin sheets that don't fit. So that's one thing. So like, pillow and towels and all those personal care items. One of the things is that if you're not from the Ithaca area or the central New York area, knowing what it'll look like for our summers and our falls as you bring that in. So knowing what the clothing to bring, that's probably a big thing. Small office supplies, those things for the semester, but not everything right away, because our rooms vary in size because of our building differences, because we have such historical buildings. We want to make sure that like once you get here, you bring the things that you absolutely need, and then maybe you can go into the area and then buy the extra other things. So because then you don't want to bring too much and then say, okay, what do I do with it now? So that between the two of you, you can go out and get the other things that you need.
I'm going to go a little less literal, and I know I set you all up for this, and I wanted your literal advice. So mine's going to be off that track a little bit in my advice, and that's really just, again, to come in with an open mind and what this experience is going to be like. It's not going to be perfect. It will be great though. And you will learn and you will grow and you will be challenged. And that's what it's all about when you go into higher education, is not to just expect that you're going to be in a totally comfortable environment and always be around people that agree with you 100% or that see things the same way that you do, but that are going to really get you to think. And really, if you're only going to do that effectively, whether that's in the classroom or out of the classroom, is if you're willing to lean in, see other people's perspectives, other viewpoints, listen, formulate your own. You're still allowed to have your own perspectives and your own viewpoints for sure, but just make sure you're willing to hear all perspectives and really reflect and think about what those mean to you. So I really think that we have a phenomenal residential experience here at Cornell, growing, and my colleagues that joined us today are two of the key reasons for that being the case. So I'm super grateful to you and all of your colleagues that work every day to support our students in their residential experience. There's a reason why a person chooses a place like Cornell that's located in a fairly rural environment. It's because they are excited about this notion of being on a residential college campus. So I want to just end here before we totally sign off. If there's any parting words that either of you want to offer before we sign off for today.
I think I just want to echo coming in, being willing to learn about one another. Like, we're all coming from different places, and what we're able to learn and grow from that is going to be really important, especially in whatever hall that you're in, and being open to learning about new things.
It's a really unique opportunity to live with people that you don't know. And so, you don't know your roommate so many times. And so the ability to learn about someone different than yourself and being in this collective community together, and have all these opportunities presented with you while you're learning and growing about your degree, is a really unique opportunity, and take advantage of that. So yeah, we're really excited to have you in just a short amount of time. So we're excited.
That's right. Unless you are lucky enough, like the three of us are, to be in the college environment for your careers, it's probably, as Abby and Lammi have said here, it's one of the only times in your life where you will be with such a broad range of individuals and have that opportunity to live with so many people. And it's such a rich, incredibly special moment in time. So as has been said, we're super excited to welcome everyone to campus very soon. We look forward to having you. Thanks for your patience and your cooperation as we do try to make sure we have this great college experience while we continue to battle this COVID variant, Delta variant with COVID-19. If you will help us, we're helping, doing everything we can to keep the community safe and make sure that we can keep things going. I want to wish you safe travels. Good luck packing, not too much as you got that advice, and just what you need. And we look forward to seeing you all in a couple weeks. And we're going to do, this will be the end of Real Talk with Ryan this time, but stay tuned for future episodes. And thanks so much for joining and being with us today. Take care, everybody.